Canada Lands is a self-financing Crown corporation with a 30-year history of transforming former federal properties into complete communities through an engagement-led process. Here in the National Capital Region, one of our largest projects is the former CFB Rockcliffe, now known as Waterridge Village, where we continue to transform the site into a mixed-use community. On the screen, you'll see images of one of 9 parks that will be part of the community, as well as homes ranging from a low of mid, rise, and high rise. And as an example, we've included Veterans House as part of an affordable housing implemented across that site. In response to the ongoing housing crisis, Canada Lands will continue to have a role in enabling housing as well as affordable housing, with a focus on accelerating some of the work to get there faster, while still maintaining our development standards and supporting our priorities within a financially sustainable model. As a reminder, Canada Land works with for-profit and nonprofit builders who in turn build homes on our sites. Our role is to develop the vision, obtain the planning approvals, and oversee the private sector development, confirming alignment with our work. Canada Lands has made a commitment to enable a minimum of 20% affordable housing on its sites, including here at Confederation Heights. As we move through the municipal process, Canada Lands will further define how affordable housing will be implemented throughout the site. For those of you who've been following the project since our initial launch in the fall of 2021, you may recall that we introduced the project as part of a partnership with Public Services and Procurement Canada, understanding that the site would remain largely a federal employment node and that the master plan exercise would identify lands no longer required for federal uses. Over the course of this project, certain things have changed and evolved. The biggest thing to note is the government's direction towards reducing its office space and optimizing its footprint in Ottawa, resulting in additional lands to be made available to support housing. As a side note, engagement with Indigenous communities is continuing within the government, and any interest expressed by nations is being addressed through a parallel but independent process. With that being said, Canada Lands is also engaging Indigenous communities on elements of the master plan. Within the dotted white boundary, it represents the 465 acres of the site that we are classifying as the overall master plan study area. The master plan will integrate changes within the intervention area, which is represented within the yellow boundary. When we look at the multiple land ownership, you will see that 188 acres of lands are owned by PSPC, and we now understand that the Sir Leonard Tilley building, the central heating plant, and the RA Center, who are tenants of the federal government, will remain within the remainder, with the remainder being declared as surplus. Health Canada is highlighted in yellow, and they will remain for the long term, and they are owners of their lands. In blue are Canada Post lands, where we continue to understand their needs for our office accommodation. And in addition, we have lands owned by the City of Ottawa that are uncolored on the map. The following provides an overview of our process in creating a master plan. When we launched the project in fall of 2021, we engaged the public to hear what big ideas for the future transformation of the site and worked with landowners, stakeholders, as well as approval authorities such as the City of Ottawa and the NCC. This assisted us in creating a vision and set of guiding principles, as well as the framework that led us to develop 3 concept options that we presented in the fall of 2023. Feedback from our engagement efforts helped us identify what elements from each of those 3 concept options we would move forward into the draft master plan. We are here with you today to confirm our thinking and direction regarding the draft master plan and get your input if further refinements are needed to finalize the master plan and proceed through the City of Ottawa's secondary plan process. Following this meeting, our team will consolidate all of what we heard and continue to work with the City of Ottawa and stakeholders to prepare the final master plan, which we anticipate by the end of this year. And we will share that with you prior to submitting our applications through the City of Ottawa. Following this presentation, you will move to workshop sessions where you can discuss the master plan in further detail and provide your feedback. This is an exciting opportunity as we collectively work together to define the future of these lands as they transform from a formal federal office campus to a mixed-use community. Here we are pleased to present to you the draft master plan, which you will find on the boards here in the room. We know that you will have strong ideas and feelings about what should happen on this site, and we hope that after considering all of the opportunities, challenges, needs, requirements, that you feel that we've come up with a balanced plan. I will now turn it over to Tavi from the City of Ottawa, who will provide an overview of the secondary plan process, followed by our consulting team, FOTEN and ERA, who will walk you through the main elements of the draft master plan presented here.
Thank you, Catherine. Firstly, I'd like to thank you all for coming out this evening. This is the city's first official open house for the secondary plan. I know that you've been out for a couple of public information sessions prior to this, but this is our first time out here with you, so thank you for your time. Moving ahead to outline the secondary plan process. I'm just going to spend a few minutes outlining why a secondary plan and why now. Generally speaking, I think that you all know that planning and development across the city is governed by the policies of the official plan. So that when there's a large or complex area in the city, and especially one that we expect to see a lot of new growth at, such as Confederation Heights area, the best way to implement the policies of the official plan are through a secondary plan. So a secondary plan sets out a more refined policy framework to guide the private development and the public infrastructure projects that we might expect to see in the area over the short and the long term. And generally speaking, a secondary plan anticipates about 20 years moving forward. The second main reason about why now is infrastructure needs are evolving. We've got the Mooney's Bay LRT station that's been recently developed and now functioning on site. The pedestrian bridge across from coming from Carleton University, the baseline BRT and Heron Road BRT hopefully is going to be funded soon, but lots of headway has been made on that project. But also there's old infrastructure which is reaching its life cycle, and we simply can't, those life cycles simply can't meet the anticipated future of the site. So we need a coordinated approach to addressing the old infrastructure, but also to leveraging that new infrastructure. As Catherine had outlined, the land ownership is changing. CLC's new ownership and mandate for the land will provide new development opportunities. And once these opportunities emerge, the land use functions are going to have to pivot from that sole employment use to an entirely different type of use, which includes a whole lot of residential. So that's going to bring about a complete change to the area, and we need to anticipate this. The fourth main reason about why now is because we need to review and work with CLC to refine the feasibility of the draft master plan. There's been a lot of work completed to date, but given the complexity of the area, a lot of work has to be done, especially to confirm the concept's technical feasibility. So now that we have the single concept to work from, CLC and the city are in a much better position to begin identifying and evaluating the merits and the challenges of the plan, and then to refine it and create the best concept moving forward. The last item that I want to note is we just want to be ready to facilitate development. So with respect to the affordable housing that Catherine had mentioned, there's going to be housing initiatives that come up, and when development applications start coming in, we want to make sure that the policies and that the supporting mechanisms are in place, and that they're clear and that they're able to help with our review in a timely manner. So in terms of the main purpose and our priorities, in this case, the official plan designation, it's called a hub designation. This is really where we plan to see the densest, most urban type of environment in Ottawa with that designation. So to achieve a balanced and high quality results, we first of all want to understand the local context and build on that area's existing assets. So that's looking at what is the cultural heritage. That's an important component to this area, the landscape, the open spaces, but also a sound understanding of transportation facilities, and make sure that it's all ready to meet and respond to new development as it arrives. Secondly, we'll want to build on the vision that's been developed over the last couple of years to introduce a broad mix of land use functions, a higher density, and a greater form, a variety of built form typologies, as well as introduce different types of high quality public spaces. So not just vast open spaces, but ones that are much more deliberate and meaningful to a new context. So this is going to require us to understand what the transition in the land use patterns need to be and what the infrastructure improvements need to be in the area. So, if we're expected to see an increase in population here, anywhere from 15,000 to 20,000 plus people, that's a small village, or it's a decent sized village, town, and we'll need to create new blocks and new streets, and with those ensure that there's logical development parcels that would occur within those, and also ensure that there's the routes that can provide for people to move through the area, either walking or cycling, especially in those areas because of our mass transit infrastructure improvements that we have or will be coming to the area. So lastly, we want to also make sure that there's predictability in development outcomes to expedite that future development. And that's really touching on those major infrastructure issues and making sure that there's alignment between them, because these are complex projects, and we want to make sure that those have been dealt with, so that when individual planning applications come into play, there's not a delay on trying to sort out some of the big picture issues. So on this last graphic, it sort of talks about where we've been in from 2021, the start of the project, but I'm going to fast forward a little bit up to, I guess, what you can expect from the secondary plan after today. And so we'll get your feedback today, which will be really valuable as the CLC team and the city teams move forward and try to refine the concept that we have now. And then as we refine it, we'll want to bring it back to you for another open house, where we will provide that draft master plan, but also something new would be the main policy directions from the secondary plan. So that will be an important component of that next open house. Following that, we would again take it back with your feedback, refine those policy directions into actual policies, and then we would want to circulate an actual draft secondary plan for input as well. And with the hope that this can go to Planning and Housing Committee for, I guess, probably late winter 2026, early spring. So again, thank you so much for coming and being part of this, and look forward to the months ahead working with you. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt now from the CLC team.
Great. Thank you so much, Tavi. Okay. So I'm going to be brief here tonight. I will just provide you with a bit of a background and a recap of kind of the work we've done to date to set the stage for the bulk of the presentation provided by my colleagues from ERA and my FOTEN colleagues as well. So I won't read the vision statement here before you, but I will just point out that this was developed back in 2022, and what you see before you, those 7 icons are the guiding principles, and maybe I'll just take the time to provide you with a recap on that. Those are to create connections, enrich access to nature and recreation, celebrate culture and heritage of the site, ensure climate resiliency, develop a complete community, to design with people in mind, and to be an inclusive and accessible space for everyone. Of course, we've had several consultation events, and again, I think it's probably a good time to just give you a high-level overview of what we've heard to date. With regards to heritage, of course, preserving 1500 Bronson is, as a defining element of Confederation Heights, is key to the success, and that's something we've heard time and time again. To promote adaptive reuse of federal heritage buildings and surrounding landscapes. In terms of mobility, of course, enhancing accessibility and walkability across the site is key to unlocking the potential of Confederation Heights, but also capitalizing on the capital arrival route as a key opportunity to improve mobility and the identity. Exploring opportunities to integrate the 3 transit lines. Of course, we have a transit-rich planning area with future BRT along Heron and Baseline, but of course existing BRT and LRT stations as pointed out by Tavi. And of course, to rationalize the on and off ramps that exist there today. With regards to parks and open space, we've heard a lot from folks in this room and in previous sessions, but to favor multiple smaller parks over a larger, single park, to ensure year-round activation of open spaces. Of course, Ottawa being a winter city as well. So how do we plan around that? And in terms of land use and density, of course, high-rise development is anticipated, but should not obstruct views to heritage buildings, to important sight lines. A mix of uses in housing is important to the success of Confederation Heights. Cultural and an entertainment district was well received when we presented the 3 options back in November 2023. And of course, what we're hearing today as well from this afternoon session, but a general theme is the need for affordable housing. So if you recall, the 3 key design considerations were mobility, heritage, and green space. I'm going to pass it off to my colleagues. Well, first and foremost, I will say heritage and green space will be addressed by my colleagues Hejane and Tiago. But for now, I will pass the mic over to my colleague from ERA to walk you through the heritage strategy. So, thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon, part of the Heritage Consulting team supporting the project. So at the last public meeting, we heard really great positive feedback on our heritage strategy for the site. Since then, we've continued to refine the heritage character analysis so that the DNA of the site is integrated into the master plan. Our goal was to not just be looking backward, but to envision how the heritage themes can be reinterpreted to support these vision statements that we've crafted through public engagement for these exciting new complete communities at Confederation Heights. Our process was to understand the overarching heritage themes that have shaped human habitation in this region for thousands of years, including the river system, which also informed early visions and plans for the capital region, and also the mid-century modern design intents and great ambition of Confederation Heights as a federal modernist campus, and really drilling down on the design intents of the architecture and landscape design. Ooh. Okay. So there are 4 federal heritage buildings on the site, several other modernist buildings and their associated landscapes. They represent exemplary Canadian modernist design, including principles such as access and views to nature, conserving ecology. So we assessed their attributes to be able to identify heritage sensitivities and priorities. And then we further distilled these heritage attributes around key elements, including the natural topography shaped by the river system, the system of parkways and scenic drives with views towards central Ottawa, and again, the design intents of these modernist landscapes within corporate campuses. And we took these guiding principles and started to break these down into heritage character areas in order to inform the approach for future redevelopment, and to not to look backwards, but to imagine a contemporary version of excellence in design and sustainable development. So the first heritage character area being the Riverside area, this one being most associated with its connection to the Rideau, with a park-like setting, with buildings and a street network that respond to the natural topography. These character areas contain the most sensitive ecological features, and it's really about maximizing views and connections to these natural features and protecting views and connections to the water and central Ottawa, the downtown Ottawa. And here the landscape reinforces the experience of Riverside Drive as a scenic drive with framed views. We have next the Central Campus character area, which is more of a urban character with buildings in circulation that are responding to the flattest part of the terrain of the site. Here, buildings frame the public spaces. They're oriented towards the street. There's still generous setbacks along Riverside Drive, again, to maintain this scenic parkway experience from Riverside, but there are smaller setbacks along Heron and Brookfield roads, reinforcing the urban experience. And finally, we have the Heritage Gateway character area, which has a more grand estate-like setting with buildings responding to the capital arrival gateway of Bronson Avenue. There's generous setbacks that, again, create these great scenic views, anchored by 1500 Bronson Road and 875 Heron Road as visual landmarks and sculptures within that scenic driveway, which again reinforces that experience of the capital arrival route. And so here, development should take a landscape-first approach, responding to the natural topography and the existing built context. And now I'll pass it to Tiago.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening, everyone. My name is Thiago, and just going to the next slide here. So as part of the heritage analysis and also building on the heritage character areas that Sharon just presented to you, we also identify 3 important key elements of the Confederation Heights, which are the character circulation corridors. So the first one would be the Riverside Drive, which is the scenic parkway. The second one would be the capital arrival route with Bronson Avenue. And then the third one, Heron Road, which is the urban arterial. So you're going to be seeing a little bit more detail on each one of these corridors. The first one, the Riverside Drive corridor. So one of the main features and attributes of this corridor is that it is surrounded by natural features, by the wooded lots, the Rideau River, the federal parks. So the idea behind and the guidelines for any development to be built in the future is that we respect a setback, a generous setback between the road, the right-of-way, and any future development so that we can respond to the character, to the scenic parkway character along the Riverside Drive within the Confederation Heights study area. This is a little bit of images on how potential new development could happen. So you can see on those images that the landscape would be a foreground framing the developments happening in the background of along the Riverside Drive. So going to the second one, the capital arrival route, Bronson Avenue, also the gateway. So the approach is similar to the Riverside Drive. So the idea is also to make sure that we keep a consistent gateway and scenic experience throughout Bronson Avenue, especially because you're coming from the airport, going towards downtown Ottawa. So the idea is also that we have instead a setback so that we can have this enhanced experience throughout Bronson Avenue. And you can see that we have some moments of compression and extension. So we do have this big landscape area between the two important heritage buildings, the 1500 Bronson and the 875 Heron. So the views open towards these two buildings, which are key and important elements of Confederation Heights, and also making sure that we have the views towards the city of Ottawa and the Gatineau Hill. And some precedents and some images on how these spaces could look like, even including an overpass, pedestrian overpass over Bronson, to make sure that we realize the arch that we're going to be discussing on the next slides. And again, this is some images showing how development and how density could happen along Bronson Avenue and the capital arrival route. And the third one, character circulation corridor that we identified is Heron Road. So Heron Road, different from the other two ones, here the approach is really getting buildings framing the street. So buildings closer to the sidewalks, animating the sidewalks, animating the streets, active frontages, retail. And one of the ideas also is to make sure to use building podiums to not only animate, but to provide potential connections throughout both sides of Heron, and also using buildings as, why not, as an opportunity to connect the different levels of the site. So one of the constraints is that we have different levels, Heron at one grade, and then the LRT Mooney's Bay Station in another grade. So the idea of using buildings to help connections and help people navigate the different levels of the site as well. One important thing about the Heron Road that we have the future BRT, the bus rapid transit along, so you can see the two stations there, the future station on Heron and Riverside, and then the other future station close to Mooney's Bay LRT station. And now I would like to invite Rejane. She will walk you through some other design pillars for the master plan. Thank you, Rejane.
It's all right. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Rejane Padarats, as Thiago just mentioned. So I'm just going to add on what was just been communicated. We have these three main arterial corridors. We have the three heritage character areas. And building on top of that, we have some strategies we brought in from the last time we engaged with you. So the idea of the arches, the line as an active transportation corridor, and also bringing in a new strategy, which we're calling the Heritage Greenway, which you can represent it here by this green organic form that's overlaying all these strategies. So the Heritage Greenway really is intended to be almost like the soul or the heart of this new community. You'll be integrating all the modernist and heritage buildings we have on site, so helping to celebrate and tell their story. We're also integrating all the 3 heritage character areas, as well as the 3 heritage circulation corridors we just went through. It will connect all the 6 community districts that we've identified, as well as the arches and the line strategies that we'll walk through in a little bit. So here you can see it's all also anchored by this transit hub and these transit stations that are being provided, but the idea is to create this seamless active transportation or pedestrian walkway, allowing you to seamlessly walk through the site and experience all these different spaces. Most importantly, it's also integrating all the parks, open spaces, storm ponds, and so on. So the idea is allowing you to circulate and permeate through the site, finding ways to get you across these larger arterial roads that will continue to exist, but providing a better pedestrian experience. Here in a little bit more detail, seeing it in plan view, you can see all these different parks and open spaces being proposed, as well as these heritage landscapes. You will have the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper as part of the workshop and kind of work through these different spaces. But just in interest of time, we're moving into what we're calling the line. It's one of the key strategies from an active transportation perspective. So the idea here is to capitalize on the new pedestrian bridge we have coming from Carleton University along the Vincent Massey Park, underneath Riverside, and then running along the LRT corridor, taking you down to the LRT station or the transit hub, and ultimately all the way down to Sawmill Creek. So here again, some examples of how these spaces or this corridor could look like. We do anticipate this being not just some LT-use path, but an actual circulation being activated, having some residential frontages to really make this into a special and welcoming space. And again, a little bit more in detail of how this corridor would look like. And lastly, we have the arches. So this is extrapolating from our previous strategies. The intent here is to create 2 new circulation corridors that will allow people to walk from Brookfield Road all the way to Data Center Road throughout the site. Parts of it would be considered also as collector roads, especially the outer arch, where we're using that as mechanisms to help remove some of those on and off ramps we have along Brownson. From a transportation perspective, but most importantly, that inner arch, so that be more of a pedestrian scaled experience. We do anticipate those red the red dots there representing active frontages, so local retail, commercial uses, your coffee shops. They'll create this activated circulation path. They'll take you from the Heron BRT or the transitway through the side, the 2 heritage buildings, over Brownson, back to the LRT station, and then all the way to Brookfield, and that connecting back to the existing commercial use we already have along Brookfield, so capitalizing on that corridor. Again, similarly, just highlighting those 2 new circulation paths or community connectors. And lastly, just showing how all of that is building into a cohesive draft master plan that we'll be able to see a little bit more detail through the workshops. But really what this slide is showing is the ultimate full build-out of the site. You can expect this taking many years to come to fruition. We're talking about 20, 25, 30 odd years. But most importantly, it's planning to get us there. So what we're doing now is working through implementation and phasing strategies, identifying what are the areas they can start to see some development early on, until we'll build up to the few community where, Tavi mentioned, could be up to 15, 20,000 people coming into this new location. And I guess now I go back to Suzanne.